Good morning, friend. Welcome back to my kitchen. It is early, and today we are going to be making 11 different recipes. It is another big batch freezer cooking day, and the first thing I need to do is actually start cooking up some Italian sausage. I also need to get some chicken cooking, and that's going to be the second thing we're going to be doing today, but I'm going to have to dice up the chicken before we can start cooking it. So we're going to be making a bunch of different dinners. The majority of these recipes we're going to be cooking today are going to be dinners. We're going to do one lunch slash, it could be a dinner if you wanted to, but I'm kind of thinking it for a lunch option. And then we are going to be doing a couple snack items, some granola bars and energy bites. So let me get these in here. I'm going to get these cooking while I go ahead and cut up the chicken, because we're going to need chicken for 2 of our recipes today that's going to be fully cooked. I went ahead and I printed out a list of all the things we're going to be making today so we can check them off as we go. The first 2 items are going to be like a casserole or a bake. We have chicken alfredo lasagna and a sausage and pumpkin lasagna with this pumpkin that I grew from last year's garden. So I was trying to think of ways to use that up. We're going to do buttermilk fried chicken. We're going to do one marinade called honey sriracha lime 2 ways. We're going to do it with chicken and with pork. We're going to do Philly cheesesteak balsamic beef with a chuck roast and balsamic chicken. We're going to do salsa verde chicken taquitos. So we need the chicken for the taquitos and for the alfredo. And then the kind of breakfast slash snacks is we're going to do a vanilla almond granola. We're going to do chocolate granola bars or chocolate chip granola bars and a no-bake energy bite. One way I like to maximize my time in the kitchen is to do the same marinade on 2 different styles of protein, so that on one day we have the balsamic beef. I'll probably put that in the crock pot. It'll slow cook and it'll be like a shredded beef. And then when I make the balsamic chicken, I'll throw that on the grill. So I'm getting out the same ingredients, but when I actually go to cook it, it's gonna have 2 different feels. It's not gonna feel like we're having honey balsamic chicken or honey beef twice, if that makes sense. The first thing I did this morning before I woke up is I went ahead and I unloaded the dishwasher and I started a pot of coffee. That way, my dishwasher is empty and I can go ahead and just put dishes into it as I go, and that's gonna make cleanup a lot easier. So we're gonna make a pumpkin lasagna. And the first thing I need to do is actually strain some of this pumpkin out because it was frozen. There's a little bit more liquid in it than I want. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get this straining. It doesn't have to be totally strained, but I just don't want quite as much liquid that is in there in our final pasta. And then we'll get going on the chicken next. So I'm going to start with those bags because I can't fit this 4th one in there. And now we're going to start dealing with some of this chicken. So many of you said that what works better than a towel under a wooden cutting board is an anti-slip mat. And so I just cut one to fit the size of both my cutting boards. And that is going to work a lot better than a towel. So I'm really excited about that. So thank you for your suggestions on that. When it comes to a big cooking day like this, efficiency is the name of the game. So what I like to do when I'm coming up with recipes is finding recipes that have the same ingredients, and then you can prep it once for multiple recipes. And then the one way you can kind of change things up is by changing the different proteins like I mentioned earlier. And so we need chicken for the chicken alfredo lasagna, and we need chicken cooked and diced for the chicken salsa verde taquitos. So I have a ton of chicken breast here because that's what I'm going to be putting in both of those recipes. And I'm going to slice them in half so that they cook a little bit quicker. You could use rotisserie chicken for this if you wanted. You could use pre-cooked chicken if you had some leftover chicken. Whatever you want, you could poach it, cook it in the Instant Pot. My favorite way, and I've done it multiple different ways, is to cook it on the stove. I think it gives the most flavor. And so if I'm gonna go through the effort of prepping all these meals, I want it to be as delicious as possible. So I'm willing to take a little extra time to cook it on the stove and baby it a little bit more, as opposed to throwing it in the Instant Pot and shredding it or using a rotisserie chicken. But those are both great options. This is just happens to be how my family prefers it. So I'm just cleaning these up a little bit if I need to. So now I've got my chicken breast all sliced. I'm gonna lay them out flat here so I can season them. So before we get these chicken breasts seasoned up, I just remembered that we are making buttermilk fried chicken as well. And so I sliced up the rest of the chicken breast that I had because we're gonna put these into some freezer bags. I need to get these labeled. And I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna prep fried chicken for the freezer when we get to it. But since I had the cutting boards out, I had my chicken breast out, I might as well get it all cut up so that when we're ready to make the marinade for the fried chicken, we can go ahead and do that. So I do have bag stands. I'm not gonna grab those out quite yet. I'm just gonna invert these bags. I'm gonna put some chicken thighs in these too, but I do want to have chicken thighs and chicken breasts when we do the fried chicken. So that's 1, 2, 3. I'll do 3 chicken breasts and 3 chicken thighs. 1, these are cut in half, so they're smaller pieces. 2, 3, so it's really only 1.5 chicken breasts. So these are gonna get zipped up, put in the fridge, and then we'll come back to these when we come back to them. But if I was already cutting chicken breast, I might as well get these ones prepped. So now let's season up these chicken breasts. I'm gonna get them single file layer on here. Put this in the dishwasher. Because this chicken is gonna be used for both the chicken lasagna and the taquitos, I want these to be seasoned with something pretty kind of generic that will go well with both of those recipes. So I'm just gonna use a seasoned salt instead of like Italian seasoning or cumin or anything like that. This just has salt, pepper, garlic powder, some paprika for flavor, and a couple other ingredients. So I seasoned one side. So here's the grippy that was holding my cutting board in place. I'm gonna put a little bit of avocado oil in the bottom of my cast iron, and I'm gonna put these seasoned side down. While I'm waiting for these to cook, it's gonna take a bit for the chicken to get through all the chicken because I'm gonna have to do those in kind of steps. I'm gonna go ahead and make a bechamel sauce for our pumpkin lasagna. So I need to grab out a pot. Since I'm kind of right here at the stove, I can keep a close eye on a bechamel sauce while the other things are cooking. So I'm gonna get this back burner turned on. I'm gonna put some butter in there. I am making up this pumpkin lasagna recipe. I looked at a couple online and I couldn't find exactly what I wanted. So I'm basically taking the pumpkin sauce from my mother-in-law's pumpkin pasta recipe, and then I'm taking my bechamel sauce recipe from my lasagna bolognese and making that. I couldn't find any recipes that had a bolognese sauce or some sort of, I just couldn't find what I was looking for. So I figured, if you can't find what you're looking for, go ahead and make it up. And if it turns out, I'll write it down. I'm just taking the temperature of these chicken breasts, so as they come to temperature, I'm gonna take them out of this pan and put them on this cutting board that has a groove in it, so that if any chicken broth runs out of the chicken, it'll run into those grooves and not onto my counter. On this cooking day, we're kind of getting the more technical things, I would say, done first, and then the easy things are going to be left towards the end. Sometimes I start with the easier things and end with the harder things, and sometimes I go about it this way. So I just added my flour to my butter, so we're going to make a roux so that we can thicken our white sauce using the flour and butter. I want to kind of cook that raw flour flavor out of the butter, so I'm going to cook that for a minute or two, and then I am going to go ahead and use a paper towel to kind of sop up any of this excess grease from the sausage. And I do end up removing the sausage from the pan because I am doubling both the lasagna recipe that I'm making and the chicken alfredo that we're going to make in just a bit. And so I didn't think that I could put the sausage and the pumpkin sauce in that pan, so we do end up removing it. And as we're cooking our sauce and our sausage, I am checking the temperatures on the chicken, making sure they are at least 165 degrees before I remove them from the pan. I do have two sets of tongs. I have one set of tongs that I put the chicken into the pan with, and then when the chicken is done, I use a different set of tongs so that I'm not doing, raw meat tongs and then using those tongs once the chicken is cooked. So once the butter and flour was cooked, then I am adding the milk and we are going to cook that on the stove. I do season the sauce with some seasoned salt, and I am seasoning the chicken as I cook the chicken on the other side. So when I put the chicken into my cast iron pan, I'm putting it seasoned side down so that I can then go ahead and season it. So I'm just stirring the white sauce, making sure it's not sticking on the bottom, and it does take a few minutes for the white sauce to thicken. And then here I am removing the sausage from the pan, and I am putting that on a paper towel just to get any of the excess grease from the sausage. And then I do put some onions in this pan, and I'm going to deglaze this pan with some frozen diced onions that I had on hand. Our bechamel sauce is nice and thick, so I just went ahead and turned that off back there. And now we're gonna finish our pumpkin sauce. So our onions are nice and tender. I've got some garlic here. I'm gonna put a spoonful of that in there, and we're gonna let that just kind of cook for a minute. And normally when I make the pumpkin pasta, I use milk to thin this out, but because we're gonna have a bechamel sauce, which has a lot of milky creaminess to it, I'm going to substitute chicken broth because I happen to have a jar of chicken broth in my refrigerator that needs to be used. And I think that will be a good substitute for the milk because we're going to be getting the creaminess from the bechamel sauce in this. This was a nice, beautiful, thick broth. Stir that in. We're going to deglaze the bottom of the pan with the broth. Now I'm going to add 2 blocks of cream cheese. I'm going to let that melt in that broth. I'm going to season this with some seasoned salt and our pumpkin. I just tasted this. It needs a little bit more seasoned salt, and I almost forgot to add just a pinch or 2 of red pepper. I'm going to taste this again, adjust salt if needed, and then we are all done with this one. We can get this made up. And just like that, we have our first dish that we're ready to assemble. So when I make freezer meals, and I set aside a day like this where I'm gonna make a bunch of them at one time, what I like to fill my freezer with are meals like this, where basically you just throw it in the oven, have some salad, have some broccoli on the side, and dinner is done. But then I also, on the other hand, like to do the marinated meats, where there might be more involved in finishing and completing that meal. So by having variety in my freezer, I can then go to my freezer, pick out what I want, what sounds good, and what I know I have time for. So this would be a really, really easy dinner. I'm actually thinking I probably am going to have this for dinner tonight because by the time I'm done doing all this cooking, I'm not gonna want to cook dinner because I'm gonna be done well before dinner time because we got started so early this morning. So I'm gonna start with the pumpkin sauce on the bottom. I have 2 dishes here. Normally I would mix that sausage back in this sauce, but I'm just gonna layer it since I already have them separated. Oh, it smells so good already. I love this dish. Well, I guess I don't know about this one in particular because I haven't made it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to taste good. Okay, so the only thing I didn't grab yet are my lasagna noodles. These are some of my favorite store-bought lasagna noodles. They're the Barilla oven-ready sheets, and they're just a sheet. They don't have the little ruffles on the side, and they kind of have a different texture than traditional lasagna pasta. Some broken ones, I'm just going to throw that in there. That'll be fine. I'm going to make both of these at the same time. I do cook this for dinner on this night, and I'm going to show you what it looks like baked up and sliced into, and this is delicious. It is definitely more of a fall dish than a late spring, early summer dish, but I have a lot of pumpkin in my freezer that I need to use up, and so I figured I might as well try making a new recipe, and it is a winner. So I started with the pumpkin sauce at the bottom, and then I layered a layer of lasagna noodles. I put some bechamel sauce, and then I'm sprinkling my sausage on top of that, and then I'm adding more pumpkin sauce. So when I make my mother-in-law's pumpkin pasta recipe, I normally have the sausage in with the pumpkin sauce, but because it wouldn't all fit in my pan, I have it separate, and I think that works just fine by doing kind of layers. And then my mother-in-law's recipe calls to add the Parmesan cheese to the sauce as well, but I figured since this is a lasagna, I'm just going to go ahead and use the Parmesan cheese as another layer in this sauce. So we start with pumpkin sauce, and then we add noodles, bechamel, sausage, Parmesan cheese, and then repeat that process until we have it done. So typically on these freezer meal days, I make 2 of everything just because it doesn't take that much more work to double a recipe than it does to make one. So that's usually why I double it. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You could just do one if you do a big cooking day like this. Or what you could do is instead of setting aside an entire like morning or afternoon to do a big cooking day like I am doing on this day, you can also just double a recipe when you're making dinner. So say you wanted to make lasagna for dinner, whatever kind of lasagna that might be. Instead of making one, you could make 2 on, say a Wednesday night or whatever it might be, and then pop one in the freezer, and then you have kind of doubled your time basically. The next time you want lasagna, you can just thaw it in the refrigerator overnight or pop it into the oven frozen, and you've got a delicious homemade dinner. The reason I like to do freezer meals is because it kind of saves my sanity when it comes to knowing what should I cook for dinner. I know that I have a freezer full of meals, and so when I don't have the brain capacity to, make one more decision of what should we have for dinner, I can just go to my freezer and look at what I have and choose one of those options that sounds good for that night. And I kind of use it as meal planning, and also it saves me from nights I don't want to cook or nights I don't want to messy up the kitchen. I can rely on my previous self's efforts to have a delicious homemade dinner and not rely on takeout on the days that I would prefer to have a homemade dinner. And just like that, we have 1 recipe completely done and 2 that are well on their way. I went ahead and I washed out this pan because we're going to use this pan to make the sauce for the chicken Alfredo lasagna. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and cross off the sausage and pumpkin lasagna. So before I start the sauce, I need to dice up some onions. I do have some more frozen onions in my freezer, but I want to use fresh ones because I think it's going to create a better consistency for the chicken Alfredo sauce, and we need onions for the, I have to remember. Oh, for the chicken taquitos, and we need onions for the Philly cheesesteaks, plus we need 2 peppers for the Philly cheesesteaks. So I figured I might as well go ahead and get those diced up and sliced up while I'm at it. I think this is the only, there's an onion, looking for one more onion. I think this is the only veggie prep we have to do. So let me get 2 bags written up for Philly steaks. This is one of our favorites because not only is it really easy to prep for the freezer, it's really easy to cook up and it's delicious. So I washed the pan that I made the bechamel sauce into so that we can get the onions cooking for the chicken alfredo lasagna and for the taquitos. Our chicken is fully cooked now and it's resting and just cooling off just a little bit. We're gonna get to it in just a minute. My lasagnas are sitting here on the counter. I'm gonna let them cool for probably another just 10 minutes or so, and then I will pop those. Well, I'm only gonna pop one in the freezer because we're gonna have one of them for dinner tonight. I need to get a compost bowl out. I washed up my bell peppers and I removed the stickers. If you know, you know. Okay, I'm gonna put this in here. I'm gonna dice the onions first because I wanna get those cooking down on the stove while I prep the rest of these vegetables. Okay, onions are diced. So I'm gonna come over to the stove and I'm gonna get the butter that I need for the chicken Alfredo in this bigger pot. We're gonna make something very similar, like a bechamel, but it's gonna be a little bit different in here. Well, it technically is a bechamel because it's a white sauce, but we're gonna add cheese to it. So we're gonna let that butter melt. Over here, I'm just gonna get a little bit of olive oil in here, or actually I think this is avocado oil. Yep. And see if I can do this without making a mess. I'm gonna put half these onions in with the butter and half these onions in with the oil. And now we're gonna slice these up. I'm gonna pop these in the fridge and we'll come back to them. I think actually while I have these open, I might as well go ahead and add the seasonings to it. I'm gonna add some salt, pepper, and a good amount of garlic. Splash of oil, and then we'll finish these off when I get the beef out. To the onions that we're gonna put in our taquitos, I'm gonna put a bag of poblano peppers. These are the last of last year's peppers from the garden, and we're gonna cook those down with the onions. Our onions and butter are nice and tender now, so I'm gonna add the flour we need to this recipe. We're gonna cook that flour with the butter and onions, along with, I should have added already, our garlic. To this, I'm gonna add some Italian seasoning, some pepper, salt, milk. And cream. While I'm waiting for this to thicken and these to cook, I'm chopping up the chicken we already cooked. I'm gonna add 1 block of cream cheese to this, to the onions and peppers, because they're nice and tender, and that will help soften this cream cheese with the heat of the pan. This is thickened up nicely, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my Parmesan cheese to it. Our cream cheese is mixed in with our onions and peppers, and the chicken is fully chopped up and ready to go for the next, well, this recipe and that recipe. So we can go ahead, I'm gonna let this cool just a little bit because it's piping hot, and then we are going to assemble our chicken alfredo lasagna. Look at that. That's beautiful. I almost forgot one of the ingredients for our white sauce, or our alfredo sauce, and that is spinach. This is just some frozen spinach that I'm gonna go ahead and get in here. And I think I'm gonna stir this in with a wooden spoon. The heat from the sauce will wilt that spinach in no time. I did add about a cup more milk because I felt like this sauce was a little too thick, and I think this is a little bit better of a consistency. I may have been a little heavy-handed with the flour, and so I just needed to add a little bit more milk to kind of loosen that sauce up a little bit. So I have 2 baking dishes here. These both have lids just like the last ones, and we're gonna grab all of our components, which for this lasagna, it's only the 3 components. Our sauce, yeah, that's a better consistency. And our beautiful chicken and our noodles, which I need to go grab 2 more boxes of noodles. This recipe comes together very, very quickly once you have all the components done. And so all I did was at the bottom of the baking dish, I added a little bit of our sauce, noodles, more sauce, chicken, cheese, and then I repeat that process until we have completely used up all of our ingredients. And this came out so incredibly well. It's so funny. I've been wanting to make a different style lasagna than just a traditional red sauce lasagna for a long time. And today we were able to try 2 new ones, and I'm super happy with how they both turned out. The first time I ever had these flat oven ready noodles was, well, so in high school, we had a Danish exchange student live with us. She was on my swim team, and where she was living wasn't really working out. And growing up, my parents were always willing to bring people into our home. And so she ended up moving in with us for the last half of the year of the school year. And when we were in college, she ended up coming back and visiting us. And one night she made us a lasagna using these noodles, and I had never had them before. And it was revolutionary. So ever since she made us that homemade lasagna using these noodles, these have always been my favorite go-to lasagna noodles. Now I have made homemade noodles to make lasagna, and that is really, really good as well. But I would say these are a very, very close second. You know, if I'm going to do a big cooking day like this, I'm probably not going to make homemade noodles. But for a special occasion, like a New Year's celebration, I will make homemade noodles, but not on a day like today. So here we are. Our pasta is almost completely done. Once I top this with cheese, I'll get the lid on this and get these into the freezer. I typically do prefer to thaw my bakes out before I before I bake them. And so that's usually what I do, but you can cook pastas from frozen, just like if you were to buy like a frozen lasagna. They just usually take a very long time to bake. We are making fantastic time on this. We already have 4 dinners completely done. So I thought what I would do is pull out my list again. Okay, gotta find my actual to-do list. There it is. So we have the chicken Alfredo done and the sausage pumpkin lasagna done. So I'm gonna cross the chicken Alfredo done. I think while I go ahead and I get the taquitos finished up, let's go ahead and get the oven preheated for the granola bars, because hopefully by the time we get these taquitos finished and then we make the granola bars, this will be nice and preheated. It should in that amount of time. So to finish the taquito, I'm pulling out a little bit of Monterey Jack cheese. We've got our onions, peppers, and cream cheese mixture, along with our chicken. And I diced this chicken up really, really small. And we're gonna get this chicken into our onion cream cheese mixture. To the chicken, I'm gonna add a jar of salsa verde. And then I'm gonna mix this together and see how easy it is to mix together. And then we will go ahead and add some cheese. This is why I wanted to soften up that cream cheese so that it would be easy to incorporate everything. Our filling mixture is all well combined, so now I'm gonna grab a stack of tortillas. I'm gonna fill them up, roll them, and then place them on this cookie sheet, and I'm gonna freeze them before I put them into freezer bags. I love having these in my freezer. These are so delicious and they're super convenient. You can reheat these however you want. You can reheat them in the microwave, the air fryer, the oven, whatever is your favorite way to reheat them. And I typically heat these up from frozen. I usually do not thaw these first. And the cool thing about these is they are super, super versatile. You can use whatever kind of filling you want. I have made these with shredded beef. I have made them with beans and rice. I have made them with chicken and Frank's red hot sauce to make like a buffalo filling that is really, really good if you like that. And you can just use whatever you have on hand or whatever is your family's preference. I've also made these, and I'm going to kind of talk about it in just a minute, but say I make shredded beef for tacos one night and I have too much meat for, how much we're going to eat. Instead of just throwing that meat into the freezer to enjoy on a later date as pre-cooked meat or to have it go to waste, I have then taken that meat and added different seasonings and fillings, rolled them up in some tortillas and throw those into the freezer. So on a day where I'm not like setting aside a whole day to do all this meal prep, I have taken some time to, just use up what I have and fill my freezer on a random day when I have a little extra protein that is prepped. And I do that on this day because I ended up having a little bit of pork that I needed to be used up, so I was able to double the taquitos. We got way more taquitos than I was anticipating because I had some leftover pork in my refrigerator from a couple days ago. I did a pork loin in the slow cooker and we had tacos and we didn't eat all the meat. And so I was gonna throw the meat just in the freezer to use at a different time. But then I had the thought, why don't I go ahead and add some cheese to the shredded pork with another jar of salsa verde. So I had enough tortillas, so I was able to double almost the amount of taquitos. So I have a shredded pork and a chicken taquito. I'm gonna go pop these in the freezer. I'm gonna pop them in the freezer like this, and then we'll bag them up after they're completely frozen. Those taquitos are one of my favorite things to prep for the freezer. You can do so many different flavors, and I like them because they're pretty versatile. They can either go for a lunch. I'm looking for my list. I can just pull 2 out from frozen and heat them up and have kind of like a high protein lunch that takes no time at all. Or I can open a jar of salsa verde or a jar of enchilada sauce that I have on my pantry, pour that on the bottom, put the frozen taquitos on top, pour more sauce on the top, top it with cheese, throw it in the oven, and then I have enchiladas for dinner. I haven't made enchiladas for the freezer in a long time because these have kind of replaced that, because I can either do a red sauce or a green sauce, or we can just have them just like they are if we kind of want the tortilla to be crunchy. Okay, so we've got our salsa verde chicken done. Now we're gonna get going on the granola bars so that those can bake while we get going on the other things. The next 3 recipes have a lot of the same ingredients in it, and 2 of them need to be baked, so we're gonna start with those 2 first. I'm really excited about this one because I've never made homemade granola bars, and this one had really good reviews, so I'm excited to give this a try. So I have my baking dish here, and I'm gonna crinkle up this piece of parchment paper. And I'm gonna line my baking dish with that. So now we're gonna set that aside, and I'm gonna grab a bowl. And I can use this bowl for, well, you know what I should do? I'm gonna start with the energy bites because those do not have egg in it and the other 2 do. So we're gonna start with the energy bites so I can use the same bowl for all of these recipes. So the first thing I'm gonna put in my bowl is 1 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats, 2/3 cup of toasted coconut. I love toasted coconut. 1/2 cup of ground flax. I like to keep this in my freezer so it's nice and cold and stays fresh. 1/2 cup of peanut butter. This is natural peanut butter, so I just spent a good few minutes kind of stirring it together. A 1/3 cup of honey. Half a cup of chocolate chips. I'm using mini chocolate chips because I have those. And a teaspoon of vanilla. Now I'm gonna mix all that together. Okay, I'm gonna test this to see if it's gonna roll into a ball. Yep, I think that's gonna be perfect. I'm gonna keep all my ingredients out because over half of them are gonna be used in the next 2 recipes. This smells so good. The recipe for this one that I'm gonna link for you, it does say you can use chia seeds as an optional ingredient, just a tablespoon, I think. Yeah, a tablespoon of chia, but I don't have chia and I didn't buy it for this, so I'm just leaving that out. So now, maybe I should get a cookie scoop so they're all gonna be the same size. I'm gonna use my 2 tablespoon cookie scoop, I think. I'm gonna kind of push them in there. Those aren't really gonna hold its shape. I don't think if I don't go through, oh my goodness, these smell so good. The toasted coconut, so yummy. If I don't go through, and I interrupted myself, and kind of push them together. I've never thought to add toasted coconut to these. I have made these many times, and I've done just a peanut butter chocolate one, and I've added coconut, but I've never added toasted coconut. And I think that with the chocolate, oh my goodness, these are gonna be good. So these you can store in the refrigerator for 1 week. What I'll probably end up doing is throwing maybe a few of them in the fridge, but most of them will go in the freezer, and then I'll just pull them out as we need little snacks. Yeah, you kind of have to push them together a little bit so that they stay in a ball shape. You can't just roll them like a cookie. Into the freezer they go. No Bake Energy balls are done. Those are some of the best I have ever made. So delicious. So now we're gonna get going on the granola bars, and these only have a few ingredients and are gonna come together so quickly. So these are a baked granola bar, so they should, I'm hoping they turn out like a store-bought granola bar, but we'll see. So here I've got all my measuring spoons that I used earlier. So we're gonna start with 6 cups of oats, 4, 5, and 6. And now we're gonna put some eggs in this. This should help them kind of bind together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're gonna add 1.5 cups of peanut butter. That's 1.5. Next, we're gonna add 2/3 cup of honey. This recipe says you can use honey or maple syrup, but the honey tends to make a firmer bar. It's stickier than maple syrup, so I'm choosing to use honey. I think I'm gonna go ahead and take the lid off this. There's 1. And there's still a little bit of oil in there from last time, so it's sliding out really well. And 2. So that's it for the actual granola bar. We are gonna top this with a topping, but we're gonna top that after we get all of these ingredients mixed together. I think I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit of vanilla because we added it to the last one, and we're gonna add it to the next one. And just vanilla is good in everything, so why not add a little extra? I'm gonna add some mini chocolate chips to the top, and it says to add them on the top, and then we're gonna push them into the bar. Now we're gonna put these in the oven and we're gonna bake them for about 17 minutes it says, but we need to check them at 14 because every oven is different. My hope for these is that they turn out like store-bought granola bars, and then I'll keep a couple out for us to enjoy, and the rest of them I'll pop in the freezer and I can take them out as we need them. So we have one more kind of oatmeal recipe. So this next recipe is going to be an almond granola, like a granola cereal. So I have this oven I just preheated to 300 degrees. And we're going to melt some coconut oil in this dish. That's more than I need. That's probably perfect. So I'm gonna use the same bowl I've been using because it's got a lot of the same ingredients in it. So I'm gonna get my coconut oil in there along with some vanilla. And to make it almond flavor, I'm gonna add just a tiny bit. I'm gonna put it in the lid just so I don't add too much almond extract. You don't wanna be heavy-handed on that. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that together. I'm gonna go ahead and add my honey too at the same time. That way I can mix all the extracts and the oil and the honey together. I think I'm just gonna use the rest of this bottle. You can see how the honey is sticking more now because there's not very much spray left on that. The oil has a little bit of heat to it, so it's gonna help kind of melt that honey just a bit. I'm gonna add my oats. My almonds, which I keep in the freezer, pinch of salt, and I'm gonna mix this together, along with 1 egg. You might think that's a little weird to add an egg to granola, but it helps kind of make clusters. I like there to be a little bit of clusters in my granola. I'm gonna get this on our baking sheet. So with this one bowl and one spatula, we were able to get 3 recipes done. That's my oven telling me it's preheated. Put this into a layer. Another trick you can do if you like really clustery granola is you can add a little bit of flour to it to help bind everything and create little clusters. But I'm just gonna go with the 1 egg this time. It's also gonna help browning. So into the oven this goes. If I was using toasted almonds, I would add those in at the end, but those were raw almonds, so I'm gonna put them in the actual granola so that they can toast in the oven with everything else. But say you had like honey roasted almonds or peanuts or something you wanted to add to your granola, chop those up and then toss it and turn those in after it's already cooked. So we've got a couple more minutes on our granola bars. This is gonna take probably, well, I have to look at the recipe again. I'm not following my recipe for granola, but I'm not following this one exactly either. So 45 minutes or so to an hour. So we're gonna keep a close eye on that. So we have all of our snacks and our one kind of breakfast item done. We have our bakes done. We've started our marinades and our crock pot / Instapot / grill recipes. And those are what we're gonna focus on next. And it sounds like my dogs wanna go out, so let me let them out. I'm gonna reset, I'm gonna put away all this stuff for the granola that we just used, like the peanut butter and vanilla that I don't need for the rest of the recipes. And because my dishwasher is unloaded, I'm just gonna throw all these dishes into the dishwasher. I'm gonna put these in the compost. And now I'm gonna go let my dogs out because they're asking. These will go in my fridge. These are gonna go in the freezer. And that's my timer for the granola bars. So I went ahead and got the dishwasher started, got the counter clean so we can get going on the final recipes. And I took the granola out of the oven and it is delicious. I'm letting the granola bars cool completely, so obviously I took them out of the oven. They're nice and firm, and then we'll cut into them. These got a little bit darker than I would like, but it still tastes fantastic. And I'm really, really happy to have some homemade granola on my pantry shelf again. So I'm gonna let the granola bars and the granola just cool completely while we get going on our crock pot and our marinated meats, like that can go in the crock pot, the Instant Pot, or on the grill. So the first thing I did is I just put this really thinly cut pieces of steak that I get at Costco in these bags, and now these are done. That's all I did is I divided the beef in 2, and now I have 2 Philly steaks that we can enjoy in the future. So these are done, so I'm gonna get these out of here. So this was just a matter of putting the beef in these bags to have them be complete. One thing I also did is I got all the chicken ready and the rest of the meat ready for these next few recipes. So I took the kind of extra bits of fat off the chicken thighs and I got those in bags so we can get going on these next recipes. So let me get a tray. So these 2 are done. I'm gonna go get these in the freezer. I'm gonna grab 2 more bags. These are the chicken breasts that we prepped earlier, and then I have 2 more bags because we are gonna make or prep fried chicken. So I love doing fried chicken on the stove. I love doing it in the air fryer. That's probably my new favorite way to do it. But I don't do it very often because I don't think to marinate the chicken in buttermilk in advance. So I was researching, and you can freeze buttermilk and you can freeze chicken ready to go for the fryer so I can have this prepped and ready to go next time I want fried chicken. So we're going to make the marinade, the buttermilk marinade in these bags, and then we're gonna make the flour dredge in these bags, and I'll just put it in the freezer along with the chicken, and we'll have that ready next time we want fried chicken. So the first thing I'm gonna do is pour my buttermilk into my bag with my chicken. And then I'm gonna season this with onion powder, paprika, black pepper, salt, garlic powder. And that's it for the buttermilk marinade. So I can pull these out of the freezer in the morning. It'll thaw in my freezer or the night before, and then it will sit in the buttermilk and get tender throughout the day. And then we can cook it up for dinner or lunch. But this is just one part we're gonna prep. We're also gonna prep the flour dredge as well. Just gonna get all those seasonings mixed together in there. So for the flour mixture, we're gonna start with flour. And you could do this with whatever your favorite fried chicken recipe is. This is just all-purpose flour. Now we're gonna add some baking powder. Whoop. Onion powder. Paprika. Black pepper. Salt. And now this is done. So all I'm gonna do is close this bag and mix all this together. Two more recipes ready for another night. I'm not sure what to cook. The next recipe is a balsamic recipe. It's a honey balsamic. We're gonna do a slow cooker chuck roast version of this, and then I'm gonna do a version that I will put on the grill, which is gonna be chicken. So I'm gonna start with just a little bit of oil. This is where you can really tell the difference, where we're gonna get the same marinade, so same ingredients out one time, but we're gonna have two pretty different dinners. Now I'm gonna do a half a cup of balsamic in here. In here. This is my favorite balsamic vinegar. It's so rich and thick and just fantastic. Now we're gonna add pepper, a little bit of paprika for color, onion powder, lots of this garlic. I need to save some of this for, well, actually I've got more garlic, so I can put quite a bit in there. Garlic in each one of those. Worcestershire sauce. Some soy sauce. And honey. All right, so that's two more dinners down. So I think that this beef would be really good served on mashed potatoes or maybe some egg noodles. I'm just mixing this marinade around. This will definitely be a dump and go recipe, and then this will be this balsamic chicken on the grill. I'm thinking I will serve this when I just make a big garden salad, or if I do grilled veggies on the grill, I'll throw this on the grill. And this will be kind of a lighter dinner with just grilled or just vegetables and this chicken is what I'm thinking. Versus this will be, you know, a little bit more of a cozier dinner. But I like to have options, so two more dinners done. The next one we're gonna make is going to be a honey sriracha lime, and I think this one's gonna be so good. I have 2 bags worth of chicken, and I have 1 bag of pork shoulder, which is a tougher cut of pork. And this is either gonna go in the crock pot or the Instant Pot, and these 2 are gonna go on the grill. So I need to grab 1 more of my bag holders out. And I pulled out some lime juice from the freezer so that we could make this with fresh lime juice. So to make this recipe, the only other couple ingredients I needed to grab, other than what I already had out, is some fresh lime juice, which I just thawed this. It was freshly squeezed and then I froze it. So convenient. And then to add to that, I freeze dried the zest of the limes. So I didn't waste any parts of the limes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that in here. So we're gonna get the benefits of both the fresh juice and the citrus flavor from the zest. Now I'm gonna add our minced garlic. So what I did is I bought a bag of, because I'm completely out of fresh garlic from last year's garden. My garlic in the garden this year looks fantastic. So what I did is I went to the store and bought a big bag of freshly peeled garlic. And I did look to make sure it said that it was grown in the US, so I'm hopefully trusting that. I blended it in my food processor, and then I froze it in these little pucks. So which one did I just put garlic in? That one. So I'm gonna put 2 pucks of garlic in each one of these. And then I'm gonna pop this back in my freezer. I just did this yesterday. Sometime today, I'm gonna package all these up into 2 Ziplocs, and then I can use this whenever I need fresh garlic. I usually harvest my garlic in mid to late July. So we'll do that together in mid to late July. Now we're gonna add soy sauce. Now I originally saw this recipe on Instagram and it just looked fantastic. I just used the last of my soy sauce, perfect. Now I'm gonna add this is homemade sriracha, I just reused this bottle. I'm just gonna use the rest of this between these 2, or 3. I'm gonna put a little water in that. So I do wanna get all of that out. Oh, I did wanna mention, in that last recipe, it did state to add beef broth, but when I slow cook things, I generally don't add the broth at the beginning because usually the meat tends to produce enough broth. So if I feel like the beef, when I'm slow cooking it, needs broth, or if I put it in the Instant Pot, I will put a cup of broth in it because it needs that liquid, then I will add it at that time. But I don't add it to this part because I don't want a bunch of extra liquid in the slow cooker if I choose to cook, which I will cook this pork in the slow cooker. I don't want any extra liquid because this will produce enough liquid on its own. So that's another thing. I'm not gonna put any extra liquid in this pork, even though I know I'm gonna slow cook this in the slow cooker probably. I might cook it in the Instant Pot. Now we're gonna add honey, because this is a honey lime sriracha. I'm gonna go ahead and just use the rest of this honey. I think I've used all of my spatulas. I'm gonna use my brush to get the rest of this out. We just got bees a couple weeks ago, and so maybe one day I will be cooking with my own homegrown honey. I'm gonna add some black pepper, onion powder, and there we go. 3 more main dishes done. Okay, these are ready to go into the freezer. And I wanted to check our list to see where we're at. Let me grab my pen. Okay, so we've got the buttermilk fried chicken just done. We've got the honey sriracha lime marinade with chicken and pork, Philly cheesesteak, balsamic beef roast, balsamic chicken, granola, and granola bars. Chicken alfredo, lasagna, pumpkin lasagna is already done, and the energy bites are done. Friend, we officially checked every item off the list. And we did that in a pretty good amount of time. So I'm gonna go get these in the refrigerator for just a little bit. I'm going to clean all of this up. I have my dishwasher going. I've got some dishes I need to wash by hand. I'm waiting for those granola bars to completely cool, and then we will cut into them and get those wrapped up and get the granola put away once it's cool. You don't want to put hot granola into a jar because you don't want it to steam or condensate or anything in your jar. Okay, spices. We used all of that. We used all of that. So these are going to go and recycle. This will get put away. Let's go over there. Oh, all these go over there. One tip, when you're freezing anything in a bag that is kind of liquidy, always freeze it on a tray flat, because If you have any sort of grates or anything in your freezer and you put this chicken on there and the liquid goes between those grates, it's gonna be impossible to get it out of your freezer because it's gonna freeze like that. On this day, I tried really hard to clean as I went. Sometimes when I'm done with these big cooking days, the sink and around the sink is just a complete disaster. But I was pretty proud of myself. I tried very hard to clean as I went. So having the dishwasher unloaded really helps. And so I can go ahead and just load dishes as I go. I also like to make sure my garbage can is empty so that I can toss things into that as I need. And what else do I like to do? Well, that's basically, those are the two main things. And then we are at a point now where I'm going to start putting things away. So I went ahead and I got the granola into a jar. Granola is one of my favorite things to have in the summer with fresh fruit that comes from the farmer's market. And so that's why I really wanted to make some granola on this day, because I normally only have granola for breakfast when it is fresh fruit season, and it is definitely fresh fruit season around here. So I'm excited to have that. And that almond extract is the first time I've ever put that in a granola, and I love it. You just want to make sure you don't go too heavy-handed on it. So here I'm cutting up these granola bars, and they are nice granola bar shape. I'm pretty happy with it. These were a big hit with my family, but I will say the most popular snack item that I made on this day were the energy bites. They are incredible and they were so easy to make. That recipe is definitely going to become a family favorite. I will make these granola bars again, I think, but I will kind of play around with different flavorings. If you follow the recipe that I'm going to link for you, the one that I followed, the recipe gives a bunch of different options when it comes to, you know, like different mix-ins you can put in. But I tried to make these pretty like straightforward on this day, and then I'll kind of probably have fun playing around with it. It would be good to add the toasted coconut to those granola bars, because I'm telling you, the toasted coconut is so good. That was some leftover toasted coconut I had from when we made the coconut cream pie. And so if you didn't see how I made the toasted coconut, you just take sweetened coconut, you put it in the oven, a preheated oven that's like 350 degrees. You keep a really close eye on it, and it toasts up in about 5-ish minutes. You just want to make sure you don't walk away because it will burn very, very quickly. So here is the freezer that I'm going to be putting these taquitos into the freezer in these bags. I like to use these silicone reusable bags for things like this, things that are easy to clean up. And now I'm going to package up my garlic pucks, and I do put them in 2 freezer Ziploc bags just to keep in any sort of garlic flavor from escaping the garlic bag. I want to keep that in the bag and not permeating my entire freezer. So there we go. Friend, we got it done. Every single thing on the list checked off. So let me show you all the things that we got done today. So first, starting over here, these are the chicken and pork taquitos, except they're not taquitos because I think technically taquitos are with corn tortillas. These are with flour, but they just are our favorite, so that's why I do that. So I've got tons of chicken ones and a good amount of pork ones, and the pork ones were just a bonus because I needed to use that pork up, and this is the perfect way. The majority of these will be used for lunches or a quick dinner. Either we'll just warm them up and dip them in some sour cream and salsa, or I will put them in a casserole dish with enchilada sauce. And then we've got our granola bars, and those are pretty tasty. I would say I'm very happy with the consistency of them, and I'm really excited about these. So I'm gonna throw all of these in the freezer. I'm gonna keep these in the fridge. These are phenomenal. If you like chocolate, coconut, peanut butter, you are gonna love these. Granola is kind of a summer thing for me. I love eating granola with fresh fruit that I get from the farmer's market or that I harvest off the property. And so this I'm really excited about because I can get some local milk and enjoy homemade granola with some local milk and fresh fruit from the farmer's market. like peaches and nectarines and strawberries and raspberries. That is one of my absolute favorite breakfasts in the summertime. So I'm glad to have this on hand. I baked it probably about 5 minutes longer than I wanted to, but I will still eat this and enjoy it, and it will be delicious. Now we've got 2 chicken Alfredo bakes, lasagnas, and 2 pumpkin lasagnas. I asked Josh what he wanted for dinner tonight. I gave him this and this as an option because I need something really easy tonight because I am tired. And he wanted the pumpkin lasagna, which I'm happy about because that is the one that I wanted as well. So I'm going to pop that in the oven, probably not till 5 o'clock or so tonight. And then we've got 2 Philly steaks. I am so excited about this. I love this. I will put provolone cheese on it. Sometimes I make homemade hoagie buns. Sometimes I buy them. Sometimes we eat it just plain with veggies on the side. 2 balsamic honey marinades, 1 with chicken for the grill and a slow cooker recipe, or I could throw that in the Instant Pot if I wanted for some shredded beef. We've got 2 of the lime honey sriracha marinade in chicken for the grill, and then 1 pork for the slow cooker or Instant Pot. And then we've got 2 buttermilk fried chickens ready to go that we could have plain, or I could serve that on a bun and we could have chicken sandwiches, which would be really good too. I love a good chicken sandwich with that bang bang sauce. If you watched the air fryer video, we made fried chicken in the air fryer, and I made a bang bang sauce, which is basically like a sriracha honey mayo. Oh my goodness, so good. I will put that video right here if you want to see how I made that. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and get all of these in the freezer. These have been in the refrigerator chilling. I don't wanna put all of this stuff into the freezer all at the same time because I wanna make sure that my freezer doesn't warm up at all. So I'll probably end up putting these casseroles back in the refrigerator. I'll throw those in the freezer because they are really cold because they've been in the refrigerator. And then I will put these in the freezer tonight, except for the one that we're gonna be cooking. And granola is gonna go in the pantry. These are gonna go in the freezer because I still have 2 packages of the pancakes that we made when we did some breakfast meal prep. So I'm gonna put these in the refrigerator, and these are gonna be snacks, the granola bars, and so are these. So the balls are gonna go in the refrigerator because I don't really need a lot of breakfast because I still have 2 packages this size of pancakes that we made together. We made a apple butter pancake and a pumpkin pancake, and those have been very well received. So if you want to see how I made those, I'll put that video down here. So this is kind of dinner and snacks, a little bit of lunch, and then if you want to see how I made a bunch of breakfast, I'll post that here. And the air fryer recipes, which are phenomenal, I'll put right here. So I just want to thank you, friend, for taking time out of your day to spend time with me as we got a bunch of meal prep done. I will show you what this lasagna looks like coming out of the oven. I have a salad kit from Costco in my refrigerator. So we will have this lasagna with a salad kit from Costco. If this is your first time here, thank you for being here. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing because we do a lot of fun food related projects, whether that is big bulk batch cooking or planning a big party and cooking a feast for the ones we love. We do a ton of things in the garden. We preserve, we buy local whenever possible, and we just have a lot of fun in the kitchen. If you are returning, I want to thank you for taking time yet again out of your day to spend time with me. I greatly appreciate every single one of you who does that. If you want to watch those videos, I'll post those here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.